Today, we're taking a look back at the ZF6, and this, of course, was one of the previous Dockyard ships, and I really like this ship. But I did run it as a torpedo boat, and well, that build did work, and it's not too bad to do. I do think I was wrong in using that build. I think the obvious strength of this ship is the guns, and I should have played that gun build. So here we are, after finding the commander rework or free commander respecs this patch, and pretty much getting through most of the battleships I wanted to play secondaries, I figured we'd take a look at some of the other ships in the game that I wanted to test different builds for. And obviously, gun build ZF6 is definitely one of them, because this ship with the reload booster and a full gun build is pretty nasty in the amount of damage it can output. Our reload here with the reload booster, like 1.5 seconds, and while I do a pretty poor job of using the armor piercing against this, well, basically a Friesland, it does do pretty good damage when you get those full pens. Unfortunately, he was flat broadside, and our AP, I believe, does not have short fuses, so we overpen a ton when he's broadside. So we'll note that down for future future engagements with DDs and use some HE when they're flat broadside instead. Of course, the HE doesn't have the crazy high alpha that the AP does, and that's standard for most German ships, let's be honest. But you do get base 32mm pen on this HE, so where ships like maybe Fletcher or, well, Friesland would be shattering on the hull of this Alsace, I am not. We are getting full pens, and we don't even need to take IFHE to get that. We just have it, and that means we don't sacrifice our fire chance either. So a pretty decent start so far. A DD killed, and, well, we're going to get the ACAP as well. Another really nice thing about this build is you get some really good concealment. I believe it's 5.9 kilometers, which is not the best at the tier. Obviously, there's some Japanese torpedo boats that can get even better concealment, but 5.9 is pretty much good enough to compete with most ships in a spotting fight. You don't get the hydro, but honestly, most of the time you shouldn't be playing your ship in such a way where you're relying on hydro to spot torpedoes, that kind of thing. It is nice to have, but when you don't have it, it's not the end of the world, I don't think. And you'll notice here, I'm spending some time not shooting. I decided this match to play it more as a hit and run style of ship, or an opportunity seeker, not just an all-out shoot the entire time. So we're spotting for our Kitakaze and a couple of our other ships in the backlines a little bit, and that means that these two battleships are likely to go down, and as an added bonus, we're getting into closer range and potentially have a little opportunity to use the torpedoes. It is a 90-second cooldown on the torps now instead of around a 75-second, I think, is what you could get it down to. Maybe a little less than that with the full torp build, but still, 90 seconds is pretty quick. And with 8-kilometer torpedoes, it's unlikely you're going to be using them on cooldown if you have a 70-ish second reload, right? You can wait till 90 seconds. And with that, you get this amazing gun power. So I've pushed up to this island to limit the number of people who can shoot at me. We know the other two destroyers are on the other side of the map, so we have nothing to worry about of somebody rushing us in the middle. And I'm just waiting for this Iowa to shoot, and then I'm going to unload with AP. And the AP really tears people up. I believe it has some improved pen angles as well. So even if these people try to angle to me a little bit, battleships, cruisers, they'll get torn up by this armor piercing. In this game, I was actually hoping to run into the Schultz because, well, we all know how gigantic those German DDs are and how fun it would be to use a reload booster AP on them. But the damage we get out of this is pretty solid, honestly. 2,000, 3,000 damage per salvo, and that adds up quick, especially when you have around a 1.5 second reload with this reload booster. I'm running Superintendent, of course, because you just have so many consumables, and that is a really nice thing to have. It's a bit of a gimmick ship, and the more gimmicks you can have, the better. At least that's the thought process behind running Superintendent. Smokes are not as good as the competition, like Fletcher, that kind of thing. Even the Chungmu with its Pan-Asian smokes, where they don't last as long, but they have an insanely fast cooldown. So you can almost always have a smoke screen up, or even the British DDs with their smokes. German smokes definitely are not the best in the game, but they do work. And with that, we do actually pop our Lucian's buff. So running Lucian's on this ship is pretty easy. You don't even have to sacrifice running him on a secondary battleship or maybe on some of your cruisers, because this is a premium, and with the way they changed the commander skills in 10.0, you have all those different trees for every single commander. So all your premiums, you can use whatever commander you want, and I think that's a really, really cool thing. Even though I think the trend of this game is going towards a less player-friendly, more pay-to-win style, that is admittedly a very good change, and I think that is a very player-focused change. So very cool. We do have to call them out for their good things that they do, if we want to call them out on the bad things as well. Anyways, we've cleaned up to this flank, and now it's time to move on to the B cap. And you notice we're kind of staying even with the enemy team, but it's going to turn out not so great here towards the end of the game. I'll be honest, when I was playing this game, I did not actually think we were going to win after a certain point here when we start to lose a couple of our ships, just because the enemy team has the stronger side of the map. And what do I mean by that? Well, just look at how strong the two islands are around the B cap to hold it from people pushing from A. We have to push through this massive open water gap, and the enemy team has all this island cover. And they still have 2 DDs left, so it's not like they're going to be lacking on spotting. So we're in a pretty rough situation, but we do know that their 2 DDs are pretty far away at this point, so I might be able to sneak a cap here if we can get this Brindisi killed. And that would be good. It would force them out of those islands, because that's what we need to have happen right now. We can't push into B as a team if the enemy team has control of the cap and is able to stay behind all these islands. So that is our win condition, is to hopefully get this cap and get this Brindisi killed. And this ship can do that pretty well. Given the good concealment, you are able to contest caps, contest areas of the map. You're able to take fights with destroyers with your reload booster and your smoke screen. We'll see later on a good combination of that, but I'm really not looking to take fights with DDs unless I have both my reload booster and my smoke screen available. Speed boost, of course, is also a nice to have, but it's really those 2 primary things. And with a ship with this good concealment and not the best speed, but reasonable speed and maneuverability, you can decide when to take those fights a lot of the time. So we're going to smoke up, and we're going to try and kill this Brindisi and Azumo. Unfortunately, the Brindisi angles right away, but the Azumo's running right into our torpedoes, and boy do they hurt. They are not German torpedoes. I believe they're French torpedoes, so we get, what, 25,000 damage from 2 torps? And that actually flooded him, so I think he actually must have damage gone to fire or something else. So he's on a double flood and a fire at this point, so pretty rough for him. And that is something you do have to watch out for in a battleship. If you decide to push, make sure your damage con's available. Otherwise, stuff like this happens all the time. And I'm not trying to be too hard on that guy. I'm just speaking from experience of myself dying like that over and over and over again. You'll notice the enemy team is doing a pretty solid job blind firing me. I really hadn't lost all that much HP up to this point, and they've got me down to 11,000 HP. There's going to be even more blind firing coming in. So really impressive from them, and something you will have to watch out for as a destroyer who's shooting from their smoke screen. You do want to be moving around and not presenting as easy stationary target to hit. There is an element of luck to it, especially when there's a Lepanto. We all know how poor that accuracy is at longer ranges, especially when you're not locked on. And he actually gets, I believe, 3 hits into us there. Pretty insane, so nearly 4,000 damage extra. So we are looking a little bit low, and we don't know for sure what that Chungmu's HP is at, but it's looking pretty high compared to us. And this is where having a reload boost and a smoke screen is going to come into play. At this point, we have dealt with the threats in the B cap, forced the Brindisi off, and killed the Azumo, so I can get into the cap now. Our Drake is overcommitted, and our Oster has died to the Chungmu. We know the Chungmu's in the north, so that's where I'm heading. I'm hoping that it's going to take a little bit for that Chungmu to come down here so that I can get my smoke screen back up, and we actually see him in smoke. It's important because the Chungmu can mount a radar. So I wouldn't ever want to use a smoke up engagement against a radar Chungmu. That would be really bad. The strategy that I would go for, if he has smoke like he does, and we'll see in a little bit, is you spot each other, you take the engagement, you start shooting, and then you smoke up, and hopefully you have teammates around you to keep him spotted, and you'll get covered by your smoke screen, and then hopefully you'll win that fight that way by him not being able to see you, even though they can blind fire you. And even though the Chungmu does have a pretty short cooldown on his smokes, it's not instantaneous. So now that we have the cap, I do want to go fight him because we know his smoke is going to go down soon, and we want to catch him out when he doesn't have his smoke screen. That's a huge advantage for us. Azuma dev strikes the Riga, which is a huge bonus. I believe he used his radar earlier on our Oster, and that's why he didn't radar me in the cap. That's the only explanation I can think of. And we get really lucky there with that Azuma, and the Lepanto trades him out. And here we go. Chungmu spots us, we spot him. He starts shooting right away because we're low health, and obviously he should take that fight. But we have a smoke screen and teammates that can spot him for us. So we pop our reload booster, and just look at how this turns the table on this guy. And just like that, the Chungmu is going to be taken out. And with HE, no less. It doesn't do as much damage as the AP with full pens would, but I believe getting full pens with HE is better than overpens with AP. So we've taken him out. We've done 164,000 damage at this point. Really an awesome result for a DD at tier 9 especially, and one that's not really focused on damage farming. I would say this ship is more of a hit and run type of ship, where you take map control and you take engagements that are favorable to you, not really a sustained damage dealer, but you could obviously play it that way. And I really did enjoy playing this ship, honestly, and the gun build does feel more comfortable than the torpedo build for sure. That's probably what I would recommend most people play. If you're wondering why I torpedoed there, there's no more team damage, so there's no longer any need to worry about the Kitakaze eating my torpedoes, and we can just torp at the Lepanto for free here. I think end up hitting the Kitakaze, but not a huge deal as he goes down with the Lepanto. And there we go, 167k, Confederate, and a pretty insane carry job. We did have some pretty solid teammates with us on our flank, so it was not a solo carry, but definitely a group effort. But that is the ZF6, and its gun build is really, really solid. So if you did end up getting this ship from the Dockyard, it's a really good one. Maybe try that gunboat build. And if you've got Lucians, put them on there as well. It's a pretty good time. And I felt like I always had an option to do something. That's the really nice part. And that's one of those things I really enjoy about a ship in this game, is always feeling like I can do something. The feeling of helplessness or relying on RNG gets old after a while, and always having a strategic option to play is really nice to have, and this ship definitely has that with all of its consumables and just generally good base stats. So full gun build, as I said, we're running reload, concealment to, take those closer range engagements, and I am running prop mod. I think that's just better to help you dodge torpedoes when you're in smoke, get accelerating a little bit sooner. Aiming systems mod, you could see the dispersion was kind of mediocre sometimes against those DDs. So I think running aiming system just guarantees more hits on target. And as far as the other skills go, maybe torpedo tubes, but honestly your torps are already pretty quick. So I don't really think that's necessary with the gun build. And that is it for the upgrades. Now for the commander, I do think just the standard DD build commander at 10 points is what you want to go with first. You go concealment and then survivability expert and last stand. And then I take preventive maintenance. It's recommending consumable specialist, but a little bit of reload here and there isn't going to help you that much, I don't think. Not as much as keeping your turrets and torpedoes and engine alive. And now for the other skills, Superintendent to get more gimmicks. Adrenaline Rush is just great. As you lose HP, you gain reload back. I'm taking main battery and AA specialist because I am playing it more as a hit and run type DD. I'm shooting from behind cover, I'm shooting from in my smokes, and because of that, Fearless Brawler just doesn't help you. When you're not detected, Fearless Brawler isn't giving you any buff, so That's where this one I think is a little better for the playstyle I chose. But if you're playing that open water gunboater, Fearless Brawler is just better. You could take range if you wanted to, but I found that having that short range makes you play a little bit more tactically and helps you to maybe not just gunboat the entire time. And it might be a little more useful to your team that way. Extra heavy ammunition, again, buffing that AP. That's how we get those chunky salvos. There are other skills you could definitely take. Maybe something like Priority Target would allow you to make a more informed decision as you are moving around the map. And when you get spotted, whether you should smoke up or whether you can take some fights with people. But the ZF6 is a very, very nice DD. I really enjoyed playing it. And I think I'm going to run a gun build on it because it turned out so well. And it's not like the torpedoes are bad anyway. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.